The corrugated sheeting that I'm using for the roof is a little over 7 metres long, but with the angle of the roof and having the sheets in one continuous piece, it means that I can lift them up on the front edge of the building and then slowly slide it up onto the roof. And then by using that push stick that I've got there, I could slide it across the building and get it into the position that I needed to. The only disadvantage with doing it this way is that I couldn't do it all in one go. I had to put the sarking down for the roof in a piece-by-piece basis. So I'd put a piece up, get it attached, slide a couple of sheets of tin over, and then repeat that process. But all in all, it went up fairly simply. Once that was done, I just attached the guttering to catch the runoff, and that was pretty much the roof done. I'm using blue board panelling for the exterior walls. The joinery on this will be done to create a seamless finish, which will have a sort of a rendered look or a textured paint sort of finish to it to match in with the other buildings on the property. So the section here between the back fence and the building is really quite narrow. So I've had to work out a way of getting those panel sheets up into their highest position. So what I've come up with is sort of a bit of a lifting jig. I've pretty much just made it out of scrap bits of timber that I've had laying around. The first sheets went on the wall pretty easily. They can be manhandled into position fairly simply. But then that gave me the higher spot that I needed to work these sheets into, which is 2.4 metres high, which is why I needed to make up this lifter. The bits of timber are put in such a way that it creates a step on either side, and I can literally just walk the sheet up until it's almost into position. Once I've got it at the right height, it balances on a bolt at one end, and then I chock it up with a piece of wood on the other end, make sure that everything's level. Then once it's attached to the wall, I can remove that bolt and chock of wood and move on to the next panel. Other than that, the windows and doors are all pretty straightforward. The only major thing that I'm doing differently as far as windows is concerned is the glass brick light panels. So here's just a quick and easy video for you on how to make up some glass brick panel windows. Normally you can actually buy kits for these where the glass bricks can be installed in situ, and up to a certain size of window, that's probably the best way to do it. Like if you wanted a really large panel section, the weight becomes unmanageable if you want to move them around. In this instance though, I'm only doing fairly small panels just to allow light into the building. So making them up so that they're mounted into their own timber reveal is a lot more manageable than trying to get up on a ladder and trying to build them into the hole that I've created in the wall. Normally speaking, when you're doing these in kits, you do actually have an outer frame that cradles the bricks in place. And as I said, if you're doing a much larger panel, that's the sort of thing that I'd recommend. The thing that I'm doing here a bit differently is a lot of the times if you were building these in place, you'd do it with a cement mortar, pretty much in the same way as you'd install traditional bricks. What I'm going to be doing differently though is just using caulking silicone. So before I start gluing them together, the first thing I want to do is lay out the pattern that I want in the bricks. There's a barcode that sits on top of each of these bricks, and they are essentially all the same pattern. So if you wanted to maintain that pattern as just a repeating pattern, you just leave that barcode in the same position when you're placing out each one of the bricks. I want to keep mine looking a little bit more organic so that each brick sort of looks more individual. So all I'm going to do is turn and rotate them around so that it's showing a different face or a different angle, so that when you're looking at it, the pattern looks less repetitive. Once I'm happy with the layout that I've got, I'm going to glue them down directly onto the timber reveal piece, which will eventually go right around the outside edge. You need to remember that if you're doing it in this sort of method though, the timber reveal piece that you're using needs to be left wide enough so that you've got room to attach it to whatever framing you're using. The plastic spacers that I'm using are just basically to hold everything square, and I've got the longer one that will act as a dividing piece between the two layers of bricks that I'm using. In this instance, I'm only going to go 2 bricks high, and the size of what you're doing here really comes back down to how much weight you can manage in terms of building it up as a panel to be able to comfortably manage it into the hole that you've created. This one's only going to consist of 12 bricks, which is not light, but is certainly not unmanageable when it comes to the size of it. The type that I'm using is for concrete and guttering. Using clear silicone at this stage means that you don't have to be as fussy with the way you keep it clean, and you can certainly run a razor blade around the edges if you find that it's a little bit messy, if you need to tidy it up before the next stage. Now that I've got those 6 bricks in place, I'll just wipe off the excess silicone between the joints. This will help seal it up a little bit and makes it nice and clean for the next stage. From here I'm going to let that section set so that I've got a solid base to work on the next one. But down here on the floor you can see that I've made up the larger panel. This one consists of 20 bricks. Because this one's a bit bigger, you can see that I've got it strapped in place just to make sure it doesn't move around whilst everything's setting up. And this one will probably take 2 people to get it into position, but certainly, again, it's not terribly unmanageable when it comes to the size and weight of it. To finish these completely, they'll be weatherproofed on the outside with a black silicone to act as highlights in the joins. But on the inside, I'm going to be doing white joinery. That'll be done with just a plain gap fill, which is perfectly fine for the inside area because it's really only the outside that you need to worry about the weatherproofing aspect of it. Once it's installed, it'll all be siliconed into place along with plastic flashing that goes around the outside edge, and it'll be just as weatherproof as any other window. Probably more so because it'll be completely blocked off. The reason why I'm using the glass bricks here is because I don't really have much in the way of anything that is what you'd call a reasonable view, but I do still want to have light coming into the room. So it kind of acts like a skylight for the wall, allowing that light to come through. The other thing with them is that they're exceptionally good for temperature and sound insulation, and it should just finish off the rooms nicely, giving us that bit of a light feature. Working with the silicone as well means that you've got a little bit of leeway time in terms of getting everything to be positioned right. So you can get them put in place really quickly, using the spaces to keep everything square, and then once you put the center space on, pulls everything into a nice straight line, which gives you enough time to sort of slide and tweak things around a little bit if you need to make any small adjustments in terms of getting everything nice and plumb. So I've started putting the panelling up on this side. You can see there where I've got to at the moment, but I've got to cut in the angles there to get everything right as far as the line of the roof is concerned. And I've also got to get the door installed as well. The same is true of the back door section, but once that's done, that'll be all the external lining done. From there, I've still got to work out the under eaves on the outside, but that's pretty much what will finish off the outside of it. And then it'll be ready for the joinery and final finish. So it feels like it's moving along nice and quickly now. It's good when you start putting the panelling on because it really starts to feel like large chunks of things are happening at once. We've started moving the plaster and installation inside now that I've got a weatherproof area, and it won't be too long before I'll be able to start putting that sort of stuff up as well. So all in all, things are moving along quite quickly now. But anyway guys, that'll be the update for this time. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.